Hello gamers and welcome to another exciting edition of Game Warp. I'm Elwood.
I'm Kim.
And this is our review of 60 Parsecs. 60 Parsecs is set during the end of the 1950s, and with Americans wanting to reach the stars, today they have become astro-citizens, and tomorrow, nuclear war. And even in space, you are not safe from the threat of nuclear war, as you soon find out when you're tasked with 60 seconds to evacuate your cozy space station before being thrown into the inky blackness of space. From here, the game really gets into its flow as you and your crew of last remaining survivors, relying on the fact you actually saved someone from the space station, are now tasked with making your supplies last as long as possible while experiencing interesting new life forms and different situations which you will now face on the various planets that you could possibly end up on. This is the second game from the developer Robot Gentleman and is the Spacebound sequel to their first game, 60 Seconds. But opening thoughts on this one, Kim. I mean, obviously it's an indie game, so this is obviously the one that you've got me sort of hooked on.
Yeah. Well, I brought this onto the table mostly because I didn't really play 60 Seconds, but I did watch some gameplay of it on YouTube before, and I thought it was a really cool game. So I was really interested in seeing how this one went. I mean, especially since, they kind of shift the setting. I feel like the game itself is still, from the impressions I got from the first one, it's still very much the same sort of formula where, you go day by day and you kind of have to, divide your rations, and then you have these odd things that happen in space, and you land on some planet, and then you meet some weird life forms, and there's a lot of things to manage. There's a lot of things to think about. I feel like, the hard part is really trying to think about what to craft and manage all those sort of little things that happen. And you realize, but as you get further on, how far the limit is of, say, how much you're going to starve your characters or something.
Oh, it's definitely, I think the best way to describe this game is that it's essentially a choose your own adventure, except that you can't put your finger on the page and then go back to it if you don't like the outcome of your decisions. You're constantly going forward because you can't find reverse. It's the only way to describe it. So whatever choice you make, whatever way you're choosing to maximize the use of your resources, this is the path you're on. You're only ever going to be going forward in this game. And as I said, you start off on your space station, you're given 60 seconds to basically run around like a headless chicken, finding anything that you can steal that's not nailed down, including crew members, like supplies, tools, weapons, armor, and you're basically throwing it into your escape shuttle before you escape the dying seconds, and then are then faced with, what you do for the next 60 days. And it's really kind of interesting, the way it obviously goes. I mean, there's no real sort of animation. It's just basically a one-shot image, and that different things change depending on the choices you've made, or the situation you're being faced. And while in your little pod, you've got the option to craft items. You can, at the same time, you can sort of recycle items to create more resources. And at the same time, every day you're faced with a different challenge that you have to make the choice as the captain of the ship of how you're going to handle it. And the scenarios, I think, is probably the best place to start, because for myself, they were sort of like the real highlight here. Because I don't know about yourself. I mean, I crashed on a planet which I thought was, it's going to be technologically advanced, but no, it's just suffered a nuclear war. So I think I was pretty much doomed from the start there. But even before that, I discovered that we had a bunch of super intelligent cockroaches living on board the ship who, over the course of the story, formed this whole family unit and ultimately ended up siphoning power because one of them's decided to start working on his own hot rod. So you've got this weird family sort of drama thing happening with this family of cockroaches while you're dealing with all the sci-fi stuff that's happening. And it's a really weird and unusual game, and I'm kind of interested to see what happen with yourself? Because I'm guessing that it was a
Well,
different
yeah.
path. So
Yeah, I mean, the game is pretty much procedurally generated. So everybody that goes in, you have your own story, you have your own path. And for me, I was attacked by space gorillas, I guess, if you call it that. I was constantly, kept coming back to haunt me, and then I had some weird, some weird thing observing me, and then one of my crew members got brainwashed and possessed by an alien or something, which I was able to fix. And there's a bunch of things like that. I had the cockroach thing, something similar like that happen, I think, but I think I had whatever it needed to repel it.
okay.
So I was able to fix a lot of the issues that were happening, but I think the charm of the game is really like, as you play the game, I think after you play the first time, you go back in a second time, you're a little bit more experienced, and that's really like, the fun part is anything like procedurally generated or randomized or whatever you call it, is really that there is a lot of replayability to it. If you like it the first time, you can go back and play it a second time and see what scenarios you encounter and how things play out in that manner. And there's a lot of balancing in that sense too, where, you know, like, it really depends on how, like, do you want more crew members, that's more mouths to feed, or do you want less crew members, but, you know, what is the balancing act between finding that right amount of people that you can send out on a trip, or with the right skill set for everything that you want to achieve?
Oh, definitely. And I think, as you were saying, with more crew members come more opportunities, because every other crew members have different skill sets which can either help or hinder your progress depending on the choices you make. And even as the character you choose to play, you have the choice of playing a male or female character, and the female character, she's actually addicted to caffeine, so she doesn't get hungry as often. Which I thought was really kind of fitting for myself, who's obviously a fellow caffeine junkie. So the problem I have, obviously, with the game, that yes, it starts off, it's all fun, and, you know, isn't these quirky little scenarios, and then we get into like day 30, and you're like down to your last 2 cans of soup, and you're basically recycling everything on board the ship, and it becomes a little too grim and a little too tedious. And it was sort of like, I got to like day 30, and I'm like down to my last 2 tins of soup, and one of my crew have decided to fall in love with me, and I was like, look, I just don't need to be dealing with this. But if I reject the advances, they're more likely going to go off and sulk, and we're all going to die anyway. So I'm here having to give him resources to appease him, just so he doesn't go off in a sulk. And it was sort of like, oh, I just can't be dealing with this right now. And at the same time, it sort of like felt that, oh, I'm in this sort of rut where whatever I do, I'm just spending more resources. There's nothing what I can do which is going to give me more resources back. And I think I had one situation where I found 2 cans of soup. And that was the only time I actually managed to get any sort of more resources at all.
Well, because I actually went through a similar situation, and I don't know, I'm kind of a slow learner, I guess. I figured at a certain point that I can send someone out to go do some scavenging. So I sent that person out, and I was really lucky, and I was able to, you know, get back a lot of resources.
Yeah.
It's really, the question behind it is really the waiting game behind it, right? Like, you send someone out, and then you kind of have to try and survive until they come back, because it's not like a one-day thing, right? It's like the next day you still have to wait for them to come back. And, you know, sometimes they might take longer or shorter time or whatever. And they come back, and you have to kind of anticipate where they went. At the end, I was getting pretty good at it, to anticipate that, oh, when they come back, I have to have something to, like, fix their sanity, or you know, fixing their sanity with a sock puppet, or like getting a med kit ready in case they come back and they're injured or sick or something like that, right? So it's interesting to see. Like, I don't really think it was really grim. I don't ever felt like it was really hard, but I thought, like, because I died on my 65 days.
Well, actually, yeah.
There was a point where it was really just every day was like anticipating what to craft and what to upgrade and what to do, and then you feel like nothing's really happening. So I really do get that tedious feeling where you're kind of waiting for someone to come back with food, and you're not sure if they're coming back with food, and you don't know when you're going to get killed the next moment, and then you're worried that if you recycle something, that it's going to be something that you need the next day or something. So there is a lot of good stuff, but I think that one of my main things is I ended up having scenarios that somehow got recycled. So I got pretty much the same script 2 or 3 times in my playthrough. And the only thing that changed in that script was, say, I crafted something different, or someone was hungry and that person wasn't hungry. But the script doesn't change with the scenario that they're giving you. So when someone returns for a second dose of what they're there for, it's the same dialogue. Say my space pirate monkeys or something like that. They were the same. I had the same script as before. So it kind of loses that kind of like, I guess it kind of loses a charm where it adds to the tediousness of the game that's already been going on, where your scenario feels like, oh, well, this is happening again, but they're not giving me a new narrative.
Yes, and I think this is, again, is the problem in the problems that you faced. And my crew members, they basically just sat around and complained and wanted soup. And it got to the point where one of them was sort of like, well, I don't think they're going to last too long, so we cut off their soup. Because, I had other people to feed. And whatever I was doing, they were just getting weaker. So I thought, well, there's no point in, like, saving this person. And this is one of the things for the games. It is all occasionally about making the hard choices and taking risks, and whether you're going to be rewarded for taking said risks or not. And, it's interesting, some of the outcomes to the situations that face you and some of the unique ways that you can resolve situations depending on the resources that you have. And I think it's really sort of key that you really sort of get your sort of crafting game down pretty early on, especially where your resources are plentiful, and that you're obviously crafting plenty of soup and you're crafting resources and things, because it always seems to be the resources that you don't have that the game wants you to throw at you. And it's like, oh, why did I not make the battery? Why do I not have a gas mask? And you feel like you're playing catch up in that sort of respect, and it can be a little frustrating, especially when it comes to keeping the soup supplies topped up. I felt that I'm recycling items which I'm really going to need just so I can keep making soup, and I don't know. I just wish there was an opportunity to get more food sources. And the one time I did find food sources, I ended up getting worms, which is about as fun as it sounds. So,
yeah. I think that there, the game is fun. It's a short little, it's like a short to play session that you get. And I mean, my session lasted a lot longer than I expected. I think it's because I played it really safe in the beginning.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think that in the second run, the game is really going to have more charm because now you know what you're doing. For me, I'm going to be honest, like, I only did one run of it so far to get a really good idea of what the game is and how it is and that sort of stuff. But it's a game I can see, like, every once in a while. I might go back and check what to do when I'm, I have like an hour or two to spare or something like that, to just sit down and play a few days, stop, come back another day or something like that. Because it's not exactly, it's not exactly super hard. It's not hard to grasp. It's just a bunch of decision making. It's deciding whether, what I do like about it is in the decisions and the scenarios, you don't only choose a yes or no. You get to choose your different skill sets. You get to choose whether to have whatever item to use or something like that. And you kind of need to think about how these things will impact the scenario in the whole situation. It's kind of a trial and error sort of thing, because sometimes they give you some wacky answers and stuff like that. And it's really the quirk of the game that really elevates it, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Now the art style, as I said, it's all one shot, and I mean there's various noises that you can make the game make if you click on different areas. Like when you got like the super intelligent cockroaches that randomly appeared, and they got little space helmets on, which is kind of cute. And if you click on them, they make little squeaky noises. If you click on like the battery, it makes like a buzzing noise, and it's little things to pass the time. So the art style is really nice, although the 60-second dash that you have at the start of the game is a little annoying in terms of controls, and I ended up having to connect the game controller to the laptop to obviously do that section. And I was thinking, I'm going to end up using the controller throughout, but you really don't. You're just basically pushing buttons using your mouse. So it's I wish the sort of opening dash had been a little tighter on the controls, because certainly when I'm trying to do it off the directional arrow keys, it's all getting jammed up. And when you're trying to use the letter keys, it's equally jammed up as well. So it's a bit bizarre to obviously have a game controller for 60 seconds of the game and then the rest of it's on mouse. But
yeah, I agree with that. I had the same problem. My character wasn't walking into something, but it always seemed to make me seem like I was walking into something, and there was a lot of lack of accuracy on that sort of thing. So yeah, definitely. So I guess we've already looked at most of everything. What would you score this?
For myself, I mean, this is... I'm trying to really think where it comes in terms of like replayability. I mean, for myself, I think it's about 2.5 out of 5. It's that tedium. It's sort of the fact it's such a shift from, isn't this fun? It's sort of like B-movie sci-fi hijinks, and then, wait a minute, this is the grim reality of living in a bunker with your supplies swindling down, and I don't know, there just never seemed to be an up. There never seemed to be a win coming the further into the game you have. It's all sort of like becomes a little too doom and gloom, and it really put me off wanting to play it, and it became too much of a grind for me compared to like the early stages where it was like, these fun events are happening, and when I'm making everything sort of balanced. But that's all it seems to be doing. All you're doing is basically you're in a small room and you're basically deconstructing it to try and make your stay there last as long as possible. And I think I just wanted just more of an occasional win in the later sections than I got. It just the grimness just set in a little too hard for myself, so it makes it be a little too reluctant to sort of go back and play for it again, just knowing what's going to happen in the later stages. But yeah, I think I'm in a 2.5 stage.
I'm definitely higher. I'm in a 3.5 area. Mostly because I kind of like the charm of the game. I like quirky games a lot, and I kind of like the tedium hit me a little. There was those little issues, but I kind of did like the scenarios quite a bit more, and I don't know. I would go back just to see if I could actually win this thing and get out of this stupid planet and like find some sort of salvation instead of dying, right? Yeah, so that's where I'm at. So this wraps up this episode. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, and subscribe. Head over to our home base, thatmomentin.com, to read gaming reviews. To get gaming news every single day, you can follow us on Twitter and like us on Facebook at Game Warp Podcast. You can hang out with us at Twitch, where we stream at twitch.tv/Game Warp Podcast, and check out our gaming obsessions on Instagram, instagram.com/Game Warp Podcast. Till next time, bye!